Bueno, damas y caballeros, muy buenos días. Nuevamente les damos la bienvenida a todos los asistentes a este segundo Congreso Mundial de Pasifloras en este segundo día, 14 de mayo. Un espacio académico y técnico que convoca a investigadores, productores, empresarios, estudiantes y actores institucionales del sector para compartir avances científicos y experiencias significativas en torno al cultivo de las pasifloras. Hoy abordaremos los ejes temáticos de protección fitosanitaria, agroindustria y prácticas culturales. Pero antes de iniciar nuestra agenda académica, le vamos a dar las indicaciones. Recuerde que este evento se desarrolla en 2 auditorios de manera simultánea, así que les invitamos a consultar en la programación para ubicar con claridad la presentación de su total interés. Recuerde que aquí en el salón número 1 todas las conferencias se presentan en español, se traducirán al inglés y asimismo cuando se realice la presentación en inglés o en portugués, estas serán traducidas al español. Para eso el dispositivo que lo van a encontrar en la parte de afuera. Las personas que no hayan ido por ese dispositivo, la invitación es para que vayan, porque nuestra primera conferencia será en inglés. Bueno, en este segundo día iniciamos con una intervención institucional y por eso damos la bienvenida al vicepresidente y secretario de la Passiflora Society International, Robert Rice, quien realizará una presentación institucional sobre esta organización internacional con sede en el Reino Unido. Welcome, Mr. Rice.
Thank you. So I hope I'm speaking at the correct volume. This is going to be a nice, easy presentation to start the day. Nothing technical, no difficult statistics or scientific words in it, guaranteed. So, my name's Robert Rice. I'm the Vice President of Passiflora Society International, which is an organization which I think should be of interest to many of you, but many of you perhaps haven't heard of before. So I'm going to tell you in a few short slides a little bit about it. PSI was founded in 1991 by a chap called Ron Bernda, who lives in Florida, and runs a butterfly park, if you like. He was very keen on butterflies originally, and then realized that if he was keen on butterflies, especially Heliconidae, he had better also be keen on passion flowers. But he then became very interested in breeding cultivars, and the passion flower that you can see on the left is what he says is his favorite cultivar, which he named after his wife. It's called Grace Anne. He founded the organization as a way of sharing information amongst a group of friends and as a not-for-profit, that's like a charity organization. So the organization is run entirely by volunteers, people like me, who give up their time to run the organization. So after founding it in 1991, the first meeting was held in 1993 in the United States, and then the society consolidated over a period of 10 years or so, and at that point in 2003, the International Society for Horticultural Science, which regulates all registers of cultivars throughout the world, wanted to find somebody to act as international registrar of a registration authority, I should say, for cultivars, and they selected PSI to act as the international registrar. What that means is basically that if you want any cultivar that you produce to be registered, and of course some of you fruit growers probably don't want to tell people about your cultivars because it's a trade secret, but in the world that we live in, which is perhaps more dominated by flowers than fruit, people are very keen to have their new cultivar registered and hope, of course, that they will be able the horticulturalists will be able to sell these flowers. And so some passion flowers have become enormously popular over time. We took a further step forward. It took us another 20 years really to start focusing not just on encouraging cultivars, but also species. And in 2022, we appointed our first conservation officer in order to help people in countries in Colombia, Brazil, really throughout South America in particular, but also throughout the world. There's a wonderful passion flower quite recently, well, known about for a long time, but found by one of our members called Matthias Lanas, called Holrungii, which is actually found in Papua New Guinea. So Colombia and South America don't have all the passion flowers in the world, but of course many of the very best ones. And then we took a further step forward in 2023 when we set up a grants committee so that we can give grants to people who want to, especially to run expeditions to difficult to get to parts of the world. And we have a wonderful member called Yero Kuta, who many of you perhaps have heard of, who is in process of updating the definitive work on Passiflora by Kilip, which was published in 1938. So it was very much time that we've now that we've got something like 700 species, that it should be updated. Excuse me a second. So what sort of people are members of PSI? Well, here I've just set it out of your interest. As you can see, it's not an enormous organization. We have 197 premium members, and they're people who are paying a subscription, and then another 259 free members. Anybody can become a free member, so in principle we could have thousands, it doesn't really matter. But of course we'd be delighted to have more of all. The interesting thing is that roughly half our members, a little under half, come from Europe, a little under half come from North America, but there are surprisingly few perhaps from South and Central America, although the figure is actually much higher if you look at the basic members. So we do have members in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Peru, and Venezuela. So I think it's a very important thing. That's quite a new development, having all these members in South America. So overall, we have a total of 456 members today. Here's a look at what some of these members are. So they're not professional fruit growers at all, as you can see. We have 6% of our members are botanists, 2% hold what's called national collections. So in several countries, in Italy, the United Kingdom and France, and possibly others, the local horticultural authorities designate particular collections of Passiflora, or whatever plant it is, but in our case Passiflora, as a national collection. And in fact, our president, John Vanderplank, who you might have seen his name on the earlier slide, was the first registrar in person, has a national collection of species in the United Kingdom. And another lady, Jane Lindsay, has a collection of cultivars. So there are then horticulturists, experienced Passiflora growers, people who sort of really know what they're doing, people probably more like me who call themselves experienced gardeners and are trying to learn more about Passiflora as they go. And finally, we have some novices, so we always try and help people to get started as growers. What this doesn't perhaps show you is that although many of the people are not, strictly speaking, scientifically qualified Passiflora experts, they are actually, a surprising number of our members are in fact scientifically qualified in some way. So for example, amongst our previous registrars, there was a forensic chemist whose day job was helping the police to track down criminals, but his evening job was using his chemical knowledge in Passiflora. Another example was a doctor called Sean Mattison. So there's a lot of knowledge behind our members, but the crucial thing is it's all not for profit. It's all being run for the benefit of the society. So we recently revised our mission statement to make it clear what we were trying to do, and so that we indeed knew what we were trying to do. So our mission, we say, the headline is to help conserve Passiflora, to preserve, whether it's cultivars or species, throughout the world. And the first way we try to do this is in sharing knowledge amongst our members, but also amongst others, members of the public and so on, wherever it is in the world. The second thing is to ensure that there are living collections, whether in situ, that is to say in the country where these things come from, or ex situ, maybe in Europe where there are no native Passiflora, so that even if somebody does cut down all the jungle between here and Santa Marta, we will still have Passiflora that survive. Another way, of course, of ensuring that Passiflora survive, if I look down below, is by exchanging plant material and so on amongst ourselves. Obviously, if this knowledge is to be useful, especially with cultivars, we encourage people to register their cultivars. Oh, by the way, if you had microphones, I was going to ask, this is a good example of spreading knowledge, if you like. How many people recognize the Passiflora on the left? Put up your hands, anybody who isn't a member of PSI. Okay. What might surprise you is that this Passiflora is a tree. It's not a Passiflora like Edulis that is a liana that grows, nor a thing like Incarnata that grows on the ground. It is a full-size, well, medium-sized tree. And there are not very many of these, and this particular one, we knew about it before, is called Emarginata, and was found recently for well, I don't know how manyth time, on a recent trip to part of Colombia. So what are our activities? Well, one is holding annual conferences, and that's in fact what we are in process of doing. So a lot of us have come over here to Colombia, and we're very delighted to be able to take part in your own congress as part of our activities. The second thing is that we print a journal which comes out twice a year, and that you can see is a copy of one of the latest issues. There you can see a very unusual Passiflora called Ciriflora, which one of our members in America succeeded in breeding, and this was one of the first times it's been flowered for a very long time. Very beautiful, but quite different from the sort of thing that you would use for fruit. Obviously, we put the journal nowadays online, so you can download it digitally. And also on our website, we have latest news, and there's a list of cultivars where you can search through and find out what the parents are and so on and who did it. And there will soon be a searchable list of species. So what we're trying to do is to provide a database for anything to do with Passiflora so that people can easily find it. And that includes other articles that there may be. So we want to build up a go-to place for anything like that. I've mentioned already that one thing that we do, obviously we have to be careful these days because of regulations, but there are a large amount of material in circulation amongst members and so on abroad, and we exchange that so people can produce new cultivars and assure that the rarer cultivars can still, the rarer species can be preserved. We've recently started doing conservation surveys to find out what Passiflora are in fact being conserved. As I mentioned before, a new development is the giving of grants to people who, not just to mount expeditions, but also who've got some particular project, maybe getting a seed bank started somewhere, some way that we can help them. We're very keen to be able to help institutions in appropriate ways, but also people like you who may want information. Finally, as I mentioned before, we're happy to give advice. If people just fill in a contact form, we'll tell you what we know. We don't always know the answer to everything, but we'll tell you what we do know. So several of our members are present today. They're somewhere over there. Would they like to stand up? They're waving their hands. There we are. Okay, so we've got a reasonable number here who woke up in time. If any of you want to know any more about PSI, they'd be very happy to help, as would I. We're always delighted to have new members, and it would be particularly interesting to have more people who know about fruit. We've tended to specialize on flowers, and I think it's probably time we spent more of our attention on fruit. Thank you all very much for listening to me today, and I look forward to hearing your other presentations later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rojas.